Hey folks, welcome to the Sidewalk Congress, where your hosts Hal and Aaron delve into the pulse of current politics and news from a thoughtful, conservative perspective. We're here to break down the latest news headlines that you may have missed and explore the nuances of politics and policy, all while engaging in lively debates and discussions. Make sure you never miss an episode by following us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram for updates about what we have going on. And if you want to follow Hal Walker, you can find him on X, and his handle is @RealHalWalker. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Let's dive into today's discussion. Hey folks, it's Hal Walker with the Sidewalk Congress with my sidekick and partner Aaron Luck. And today we're coming to you on September the 12th, day after remembrance of the tragedy of 9/11. We are never going to forget those patriots that unfortunately gave up their lives in such a manner. It wasn't really a fight, but terror and evil came and took them from us. But we're not going to forget those guys and girls. So, always remember that each year when this comes around. But Aaron, how are you doing today? We're 2 days after the latest debate. Tell me what you thought about all that.
Well, like we were talking about earlier, I did not, my initial impressions were not that of what appears to be most people, that he did terrible. I thought he did fine. I think he definitely, missed a lot of opportunities. And, like I already said, it was like they hit that dog whistle. He's just going to go a running. And you pull him off of his train of thought. You get him away from the things that are important, talking about Kamala's family or father. I don't think anyone really cares or wants to hear that. Talking about, I don't know. I just think, honestly, I'm a little disappointed. I thought he could have done a lot better.
Well, I agree with you. I am disappointed as well. And it's kind of Donald Trump part two, but I still think he's the best choice as a future leader for this country. But I recall when he was in office before, he seemed to be doing a good job, and then he found his way to Twitter, and it was like, oh goodness, somebody get a hold of him, someone take that phone away, because he says some of the most outlandish stuff that, a lot of his comments aren't necessarily presidential, but in his defense, when you watch that debate, it wasn't him debating Kamala, it was him debating Kamala and two clowns from ABC.
Oh yeah. There's no question. There's no question about that. And that's another thing, Hal. He missed a perfect opportunity there. He could have turned to them and said, well, hold on a minute. Now, which one of the three of you am I supposed to be debating? And then, he could, when they keep interjecting, he could have said, well, would you mind letting her speak for herself, or would you rather just switch positions with her? He could have turned that into a funny moment and a moment where everyone realizes, you know what, he's right. Why is he against three people? Another missed opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought what would have been funny would have been for him to walk out holding a cat for all those discussions about Springfield, Ohio, and the Haitian immigrants that have been flown up there and taking people's pets and pulling ducks out of ponds and stuff like that. I thought it would have been kind of funny to have him walk in holding a cat.
I would have done one better, Hal. I would have had him come as a furry, be a cat.
Yeah. Well, that would have been something. A 6'2" cat with bad hair. But so we're listening to this debate, and Trump, I agree with you. He missed some opportunities, and as one of our colleagues says, it's all about sound bites, and he was able to get a few, and I've got some that I'll share with us later on the show. But, Kamala answered like no questions. The very first question she was asked, she avoided like the plague, and that was kind of her song and dance the whole time. And, she's like, I have a plan. And she's like, well, my plan is, she goes back to the $6,000 per newborn kid, $25,000 housing credit. But amazingly enough, she didn't get to the point where she was talking about unrealized capital gains. I would have liked to have seen that come up and see her even explain that. I don't think she understands what's being talked about when that's thrown about. But, I think at the end of the day, it's a push. There's a lot of polling showing that Donald Trump is in the lead. Of course, that polling doesn't come out of any of the major networks because they're all on the lefty side and they're awful. We know they're awful. So they're not the ones saying that. They're saying Kamala had a good bump when she came out. Kamala had a good bump. And, she received the Democrat Party's nomination, which was a farce in itself. But she is the person they're putting up. So the election is fast approaching, and we'll just have to see what the candidates do in the next 45 days. I remember from hearing people talk recently that there's several states that have early voting, and it's just about to start. It's about to kick off.
Okay, so before you get to those points, Hal, if you're in charge of the Donald Trump campaign, do you let him debate again?
That's a tough one because I really think he would have been Superman prepared for what happened the other night. And I'm like you, I think he missed opportunities. I don't think he came across as bad, but he wasted a lot of time talking about the same old stuff that everybody has heard for years instead of, what his new plan is, what his new vision is, and why he's the better selection. So I don't know. If he would listen, if he came to Hal Walker and said, hey, help me get ready for this, I would say, you've got to shut your mouth. You got to do what we tell you to do. You got to listen to the question. You got to respond just to that question. But again, like you said, he went down some rabbit holes and, was led astray by Kamala and the ABC goons. And it did kind of make him look bad. So I don't know. It'd be a toss-up to me whether I let him do that again. I don't think either of them made any ground Tuesday night, so I think no harm, no foul at this point.
Well, fair enough. I tend to disagree with you a little bit, but I think harm was done. I think harm was done in the sense that he blew so many opportunities. It was, and that's why I don't think I would let him debate again, to be quite frank with you, because he can't be trusted. I mean, let's just be honest. You could prepare him, even though he doesn't want to be prepared, but he's going to do what he's going to do, and he doesn't seem to realize that he's costing himself and us an opportunity to try to turn things around.
Well, I think he does realize. I think he's just impulsive when it comes to certain things. I mean, I think he's got a lot of wisdom, a lot of financial wisdom, but I think he's impulsive when it comes down to, I am Donald Trump, and he just kind of carries that overboard sometimes. But that's always been his way. He comes across to a lot of people as an arrogant, egotistical narcissist. But I wouldn't invite him to sit on my couch, but with that being said, I still think he's the better of two evils at this point when it comes to running this country for the next 4 years. So, we had this debate, and Kamala got up there and told all kinds of stuff. And it's funny, you've got Kamala 2.0, and Trump even made fun of her, said, I need to get you some MAGA stuff because you sound like a MAGA candidate now. You sound like me, and it's amazing. Your positions are so much like mine instead of what yours used to be. And one of the big issues she's always had in the past was fracking. Back when Trump was the leader of our country, we were actually producing a lot of oil. We were actually exporting oil, and we were in a good place. It didn't cost us nearly as much to fill up our big trucks that we all drive here in the South, but that's gone by the wayside. And you look at the Biden administration, and they're trying to get rid of gas stoves, all kinds of things because they want you to go to clean energy, and that clean energy is really not that clean because it's made out of batteries or solar. And a big thing I know down around where you live, Aaron, is they're talking about putting a big solar farm down there because I think Amazon or somebody's going to build a data center. And I've seen some things recently on that, and I've got big issue with these solar farms that cover up acreage. I think there's so many better places to put solar panels, and it's on hardscapes. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to take a parking lot and cover it with solar panels and keep all those cars out of the hot sun while creating energy through the use of those solar panels. Have you seen much down there about the solar panels in your part of the woods, Aaron?
I actually took a tour of I think it's called the Black Bear. It's about maybe 2-3 miles from my house. They had like kind of a grand opening, and you know, to look at them, they're quite spectacular. I don't know really what they do or what they don't do, but I can tell you this is, in having taken that tour, that land is ruined. If they decide to shut that solar plant down one day, that land is ruined. I don't think it would be humanly possible to pull all the concrete and everything else out of that land and put it back to the way it was. I may be wrong. It may have been done before. But I just, in looking at it, it just looks to me like that's a kind of a permanent thing. You decide to do that, and you're in for the life of the earth.
Yeah, I don't think you get it back after all that happens. I had a buddy that lived next door to me that worked for a company out of California. And since he lived next door to me, he's moved to about 4 more locations. And what he does is he runs these jobs that build these solar farms. And he's kind of in charge of the dirt work and the installation of them. And they built one up above Lafayette in Chambers County. And that one actually provides power to the Walmart distribution center up there. And whatever's left over, they sell to the grid. But again, they took like 600 or 800 acres of trees and grass and habitat and just scraped it off the earth and put it in concrete and these solar panels. I just think, I don't have a problem with solar. I don't know anything about how it produces energy. It may be clean. It may be, environmentally safe to produce those materials and then dispose of those materials. But I still think there's a better place to put those, and it should be on top of buildings that have already covered the dirt. I don't think we need to double up our efforts to cover the dirt and do away with habitat for animals. And, hey, if you believe all the people out there that think that we've got global warming, well, you chop down all the trees for solar farms and you're going to have them worked up because they're going to tell you that trees are saving the world. And yeah, they clean the air, but yeah, I'm not going to go to that place. But back to Kamala, when she was talking at the debate, she's changed her position on all these things, and that's the Kamala 2.0 I was talking about. So I've got a little clip here where she's talking about fracking, and this was back from 2019 or 2020. Of course, right now she's telling everyone in Pennsylvania, which is a swing state, and that's where she did not pick her vice president running mate from. She's trying to sweet talk them, saying, I will never ban fracking. But here's what she said before.
No question, I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah. So thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes. And I've, again, worked on that.
So let's listen to this clip about X from Kamala.
So he has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
So here's Kamala talking about X and Twitter or whatever you want to call it nowadays. But, she's saying that there needs to be oversight. Well, who provides that oversight? Are we going to have a government group that provides that oversight? Mark Zuckerberg came out recently saying that during the last election that his organization was encouraged. I don't know if he used the word required, but they were made to suppress a lot of statements that were being made on Facebook and such that was not favorable to the commies, the libertards, the Dems. And back when everyone was thinking we needed to wear a mask because of COVID, any statements relating to that was being suppressed.
Right. Well, Hal, with regard to X, I mean, it's a private company, and, they can say what they want and they can enforce their terms of use as they see fit. And, the last thing we need is the government coming in and telling private companies what can or cannot be disseminated on their platforms. I mean, yeah, I mean there are exceptions. I mean there have to be exceptions. You can't make terroristic threats or things of that nature, but free speech is free speech. It doesn't mean you have to like it. The Supreme Court has set forth the exceptions to free speech in a very narrow and tight way, and that has nothing to do with how you and I talk to each other on X or anywhere else. I mean, that's none of their business.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's funny. Just yesterday, I received a text message from the president of the HOA in the neighborhood that I live in, and he was seeking my counsel on some of his board members had reached out to him about some political signs that people have put in their yards. Now, the HOA restrictive covenants say that, about the only signs you can have in your yard have to do with you selling your house. Here in my community, there's a lot of yard signs, kid of the month, my kid stayed out of trouble, my kid plays football, my kid didn't, get in trouble for anything this week. It's amazing the number of signs that people put in their yards that I guess the school's given out, almost like participation trophies. But yeah, I just told him, his name is Mike. I said, Mike, you cannot enforce these campaign signs, even if you wanted to, if you're unwilling to enforce the rules on all signs. So like you said, it's free speech. We all have opinions. Again, back to my dream of a book called It's Okay to Be Offended. It is. Get over it, pull your pants up like a grown man and just understand that not everybody believes what you believe and has the same opinion that you have. So it's funny, we talk about these networks that Kamala is not going to suggest need to be censored. One of the big ones is CNN, and they're the ones that did the first debate with Trump and kid sniffing Joe Biden. But CNN came out after the debate and actually kind of grilled on what Kamala had to say. Let's listen to this clip for a bit.
So he has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be.
Vice President Harris began the debate by punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
It went on from there. Despite the economy being the number one issue facing the country, the sitting vice president generally reverted to talking points about a few of her policy proposals. Even Harris allies today are saying that she needs to talk more about what she will do for Americans if elected. Senator Bernie Sanders will be here in a second to talk about more about the need for her to fill in some of those blanks. On the border, another vulnerable issue for Harris, she also dodged.
Would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Okay, that wasn't the question. When asked how she would break through the Israel-Hamas war stalemate, Harris said this.
We need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
Okay, but again, how?
How? This is CNN, the home, basically the home team for the Democrats, and they're giving her the business on that. It kind of surprised me here. Somebody has called her out.
Yeah. I don't watch CNN. I try not to really watch any news, to be quite frank with you. But the clips I've been seeing on some of the podcasts that I listen to, certainly for whatever reason, and don't ask me why, but for whatever reason, CNN has kind of took off the gloves the last week or so when it comes to her. Even before the debate, I saw a bunch of clips of them, kind of slamming her for all the flip flopping and everything else. So I don't know. Next thing we know, cats and dogs will be mating. Who knows what's going on?
Cats and dogs and ducks and ponds, they better look out. When it comes down to Kamala, again, Kamala 2.0, she's very different from what she was a couple years ago, or at least that's what she's trying to convince the people of. And Bernie Sanders has always been way out there, man. He's been really far to the left and anti-establishment kind of guy. This is what he had to say about Kamala's position on all these new things. And I think, again, he's much like CNN. He's going after her. Let's listen to Bernie.
Described Vice President Kamala Harris as a progressive. She has previously supported Medicare for all. Now she does not. She's previously supported a ban on fracking. Now she does not. These, Senator, are ideas that you have campaigned on. Do you think that she is abandoning her progressive ideals?
No, I don't think she's abandoning her ideals. I think she's trying to be pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right in order to win the election.
Wow. Pragmatic and doing what she thinks is right to win the election. To me, that sounds like liar, pants on fire.
Well, that's exactly what he's saying. There's no question about it. And, again, he just said the quiet part out loud. Everyone knows, I shouldn't say everyone, or we wouldn't even be having to do this podcast, but 50% of the people, I guess, believe that she's a changed person. I don't know. I would venture to say that most of those people don't care whether she's changed or not. I would say probably even half of the 50% hope she hasn't changed, and know full well she's saying what she has to say to try to get some of the independents and undecided people to maybe take a look her way. But at the end of the day, that's nothing new. The problem is we go back to the original point. These are things that the American people need to have beaten in their head by Donald Trump during the debate. Again, another completely missed opportunity to call her out on all of this stuff so that people will maybe go and look and say, you know what, he's right. This woman's against all the things that she's now for. But go back to the debate, it's just another missed opportunity.
Well, and I agree. Missed opportunity, definitely, but it would have helped if the commentators actually worked the debate properly. They asked a question of Kamala time after time after time again and didn't get an answer. They didn't follow up with her, but they wore out Donald Trump. They followed up with him if he didn't get the answer that they were looking for. They commented to him about, that's not true. They were the truth soldiers, allegedly. Yeah, I know after the debate, some work's been done, and it sounds like most everything he said was accurate. But, in the heat of the debate, when you've got the two commentators from ABC calling him out saying, you're not being truthful, that's not correct. The millions and millions of people watching that, if you're not a Trump supporter, if you're on the fence, you may have believed what they had to say there.
Well, again, not to keep harping on this, but I blame that on Donald Trump. He could have stopped this, Hal, in the first time it happened. He could have turned to them and said, are you ever going to make her answer a question? Okay, that puts the pressure back on them. And it points out to everybody, he's right. She's yet to answer a question. Every time she didn't answer a question, he could have said, are you going to ever make her answer a question? So if you can't tell, I'm kind of very mad at Donald Trump today, especially since you've been bringing all this up. I was kind of good about it a while ago, but I mean, I really am. I'm mad at him. I think he just squandered a gift. I mean, he had so many opportunities in that debate to just run away with it, and every time he just stepped on a wreck.
Well, according to you, it sounds like we need another debate.
Well, I think he's going to do it again. I don't know that that's even worse. I mean, maybe I can go with the coin flip. Heads he does, tails he doesn't. I don't know. Um,
Well, let's talk about Kamala again. Let's talk about some of the big line items that she's talking about, and there's this vast plan of hers that really has no substance. So there's money. She calls it like an opportunity plan or something. So we've heard that. But another thing she's flip flopped on is gun control. Yeah, well, for a long time she would comment about guns, and she was often referring to long rifles. Everything was some type of automatic rifle or something. Let's listen to what she had to say back in the day.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole
Man, I'm just screwing up today. Here we go.
we're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. I do believe that we need to do buybacks. I support buybacks.
How mandatory is your gun buyback?
It's mandatory. We want to ban assault weapons. We need assault weapons. We need reasonable gun safety laws in this country, starting with universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapon ban. I'm also in favor of the assault weapons ban, of universal background checks, red flag laws. Congress needs to have the courage to act and renew the assault weapons ban. So it's clear that we must renew the assault weapons ban. Let's have an assault weapons ban. We need an assault weapons ban. Demanding, as we all do, red flag laws, universal background checks, and a renewal of the assault weapons ban. We're saying we need reasonable gun safety laws, including universal background checks. And to your point, Chris, a renewal of the assault weapons ban. It's just the right thing to do. But we still need an assault weapons ban. And yeah, I am right. I do believe that we need to get radical about what we are doing and take it seriously in decisions, because my values have not changed.
Well, she says her values have not changed, but she also says we need to get radical. Yeah, I just can't believe much of anything she says, because for the longest time, her positions were 180 degrees from what she is saying today. I don't know if you picked up on it during the debate, but she was asked about gun control, and she said that her and Tampon Tim were gun owners, and we're not taking anybody's guns.
Well, if she's a gun owner, that's news to me. Maybe by that she means she's surrounded by people who own guns, or maybe she was speaking of as the federal government as a whole. She's a gun owner, including the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, Coast Guard. But I would certainly like to see a form that she filled out in order to buy a gun. That would kind of impress me a little, maybe. But yeah, I don't think she's any more a gun owner than she is a fracker or anything of the like. And that's I just it just never ceases to amaze me how people don't see through this nonsense. It's just beyond my comprehension.
Well, with that being said, let's go to the next big issue, healthcare. She's made some position statements in the past that are just frightening. Let's listen to what she said about Medicare for all.
So just to follow up on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, to reiterate, you support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this. Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Well, I'll be an advocate. We need some healthcare reform, but Medicare for all is definitely not it. There's a big difference between having good care and government care. If government care was so great, and I said this back when Obama brought out Obamacare, you and I, Aaron, grew up in military families. I remember going to the base and waiting for like half a day to see a guy. If the government was so good at their health care on these military bases would be a lot better than it is. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would. And again, because you are taking what is a private business responsibility and making it a government responsibility. And you can go back through anything. Doesn't matter what it is. Government takes over, everyone's retired with Social Security. Well, that's a disaster. Nothing the government touches or takes control of ever turns out to be a good thing. And I don't know why they haven't learned their lesson on that and think that all of a sudden with healthcare, magically the government is going to somehow not screw that up like it has everything else is taking control of. And, it was kind of a funny line. She said, who amongst us has not had to deal with that? Well, I can tell you who, her. She's had government paid health insurance her entire life. So she doesn't even know what she's talking about. And I can promise you this too, Al. If that were to come to fruition, the only people that would still have Blue Cross Blue Shield would be Congress and the president. They'd exempt themselves out of that deal.
Well, if there's any more changes to healthcare, I'm not going to be able to afford it because right now it's more than my mortgage is every month, and the coverage is less than it's ever been. So, really, we could spend several shows talking about this, but when you look back in time and you see some videos on some of the people that crafted the language for Obamacare, they flat out refer to it as a tax. So, our new premium rates are paying for the health care for other people. And, that's not what America was made on. We've talked this whole time and you've taken the position that Trump messed up. He missed opportunities. I'm going to play for you one there. I think he hit. I mean, to me, this was a triple. I mean, this pitch came in and he just flat out ripped it. So listen to this one and we'll have some laughs about it afterwards.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
What'd you think about that one?
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, there should have been a lot more of it. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is taking the issue and throwing it directly back at. And if he would have done that, and he could have done that on every single question. And then think about it, though, Al. If he had done that on every question, we would be having a much different conversation right now. America would be having a much different conversation right now. The polls would have a much different look to them right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I thought that was brilliant. I wish I would have seen it on every single question.
You know, when we think about the illegal immigrants that have come into this country and, you know, directly addressing that statement, you know, let's go shut it down now. You know, there is an untold number here. We'll never get an idea what that number is. And I think we could spend a lifetime getting those people out of the country just because there's so many of them. But just, you know, this past week, we received that news about what was going on with the Haitians up in Ohio. And we had a lot of laughs about it because people's cats and dogs are missing. And, you know, I saw a picture of a guy walking down the street with a duck he pulled out of a pond. And apparently that's what they're eating. But just today, I was forwarded an open letter from a politician in North Alabama. It appears that they have sent, let's see what this number is. Bear with me, folks. The writer of this letter says, I estimate there are over 15,000 Haitians in the surrounding communities. And this is North Alabama. This is Boaz. This is Sylacauga. And, you know, they were flown up there. They were flown up there as part of a deal that the Biden administration did. And it was called the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan program. And that allowed them to fly 30,000 migrants directly into the U.S. each month if they have a sponsor. Well, who's that sponsor? Well, it's probably a chicken plant that wants to employ them for about $6 an hour with no benefits and pay them cash and not, you know, cover any taxes or anything. But now, you know, even in North Alabama, these communities have been flooded with these immigrants. And I just don't know what the future looks like for all that, you know, let alone are they going to take people's jobs. But, you know, my fear is they're going to turn them into voters.
Yeah, well, I think there's no question that's the end result. And we've had this discussion before. I've got no problem with legal immigrants. I've had no problem with them. But I do have a problem with illegal immigrants, and I do have a problem with maybe upward of who knows, 15, let's just say 15 million of them. And I don't think there's anyone in this country that should not have a problem with it. Matter of fact, I would go so far as to say is if you do not have a problem with that, something's wrong with you. But again, I don't know. It's just, I don't understand it. I really don't. Are these cities getting huge government funds? I don't understand what is the incentive to bring in this many people to a community. If you're that community leader, you would have to look at this and go, well, wait a minute. Now, our infrastructure is built for this many people. We could probably use an additional this many. What the heck are we going to do with quadruple or 10 times that amount of people? We cannot do that. Our infrastructure cannot handle that. Our churches and charities and people that are willing to help don't have that many resources. So I don't really understand the incentive behind what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Aaron, other than just, you know, making more voters for their side. But the writer of this article, his name is Jay Palmer, and at one point he was an advisor to the Trump administration back when they were in office. But, you know, his comment is they are greeted in these locales with benefits paid for by the government. And he goes on to say that this program allowing 30,000 migrants to be flown to the U.S. each month has ironically been shut down. And it was shut down the first week of August 2024 due to financial fraud of the sponsors. He says, in other words, neither the sponsors nor the migrants were being vetted. That was the fraud he was talking about. We could go on like this, but I think we've got to kind of work towards an ending here. You know, I've got some audio of Trump's closing, and I think it was pretty good. You know, again, we could think things could have been better, but I think this was pretty good.
I like the way he closed this down. This is what he should have led off with. But in closing, it was pretty good. So we're going to listen to this, Aaron, real quick. Then we're going to wrap this up and we're going to get on with other things. So take a listen to this.
So you just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Or just like Trump said, she's been campaigning for a thing of change. She's been in there nearly 4 years, and all these things that she's promising haven't been done. So why suddenly does she want to do this? Well, because she's a politician. Politicians make promises they can't keep. But I think that was pretty good closing for him, all things considered.